Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. I'm your host, Ril Dil Quinn, recording this on a Wednesday as I discuss the world of sports and pop culture. Episode 1007 on the brink. We are almost set with the NBA Finals. Of course, both the Pacers and Thunder are just one win away from the small market championship. And I'm sure people will take their proverbial shots. It's bad for the NBA. Where's New York? Where's LA? And so on and so on. So we'll hear enough of that bullshit for roughly a couple of weeks. But still got two games to be played in order to get there. The finals begin a week from Thursday. A week from Thursday. Uh, at the Western, at whoever wins the West. I mean, I should say that we still have some ways to go. It more likely is going to be hosted by OKC as they have home court advantage. But we begin with the Eastern Conference Finals, game four in the books. The Pacers go up 3-1. They take out the Knicks 130 to 121 in a very exciting, fast-paced game. A game that really was controlled by the Pacers from start to finish. I know there were moments where you thought the Knicks, cut it to 6 in the fourth quarter. Pacers started playing dumb basketball in the fourth quarter with some bad shots, and the pace slowed down, and they were fouling all over the place and allowed the Knicks to get back into it. Anunoby got hot, and we thought that there might be a repeat of game three, where the Knicks completely turned the tables on the Pacers, outscoring them 36-20 in that fourth quarter. And in the end, it just fell apart. But give the Knicks all the credit in the world in that game. Karl-Anthony Towns with the 20 points in the fourth quarter. But that was not going to be the case tonight. Last night, excuse me. Pascal Siakam hits a three, make it 118 to 109, and that basically was the ball game. That was the biggest shot. I know the Knicks would end up cutting it to 6 points, but after Siakam hits that shot, I never thought the Pacers were going to lose that game after that particular shot. Just an embarrassing defensive performance. Before I get to the Pacers, just an embarrassing defensive performance by the Knicks. You allow Indiana scores 130 points in regulation. They scored 43 in the first quarter. Had 43 in the first quarter, 69 in the first half. They, on a night where they started out hot in the 3-point land. They started out, first quarter, the Pacers were 6 of 8 from 3-point range. After that, they really cooled off. They were just 7 for the next 25, and in the end of the game, 13 for 32. So after that, and Halliburton cooled off as well. He starts out 4 for 5 and ends up, one for his next 7. Finished 5 for 12. So, they didn't go crazy from the 3-point line, right? They didn't go crazy from 3-point line. You allow, it's one thing for Halliburton. We'll talk about him later. We'll talk about him in a minute. It's one thing for Halliburton to get his numbers and put up big numbers. It's one thing for Siakam to put up big numbers. Both those players were phenomenal. They combined for 62 points, but you give up 20 points to Benedict Mathurin, then you're not going to win that game. You're not going to win that game. Mathurin played by far, from an offensive standpoint, some of his decision making and shot selection was not the greatest, and he had some shaky ball handling. I mean, I'm amazed he had no turnovers, because it got to a point in the fourth quarter where Mathurin was out of control, man. It got bailed out by a couple of suspect foul calls. And again, I don't want to hear anything about officiating from the Knicks. The Knicks shot 40 free throws in that game, but You allowed Matherin to score 20 points in the game. Like he basically was the Indiana bench. Okay. He scores 20 points. Um, Indiana as a team shoots 51%. Uh, as a team, Indiana shoots it's in the game shot, excuse me, about shot 46%. 46% from the floor. They were 12 or 28 threes, 42% from the 3 point line. And, well, that was the Knicks numbers. Indiana shot, I'll get these numbers right. Indiana shot 51% from from the field overall and 40% from the 3 point line. And again, the Knicks, scored 121 points. Uh, the Knicks the Knicks were able to go to the line 39 times, 33 or 39 from the line. You got again 22, 24-12 game out of Towns, 31 out of Brunson. Anobi had his best scoring game, 22 points. Josh Hart, 12 and 11. So again, offense was not the problem with the Knicks. The problem again, the problem again was the defensive effort. And we can sit up here. Listen, and I'll get to the Pacers in a second, but some of those Pacers had a number of layups. There were so many defensive breakdowns by the Knicks. It wasn't even funny. And we knew this coming into this series. We knew this for the most of the season. The Knicks have not been a or not a good defensive team. That's something that when their season does end, and it could end tomorrow, if not in Saturday night. I don't expect this to reach a seventh game, but your two best players are horrible defensive players. Like that's the Knicks. That's the situation that the Knicks are going to have to address in the offseason. Like their two best players by far, in Brunson and Cat, are probably their two worst defensive players, and I don't see a pathway towards a championship or even to the finals if that is the case. So again, they'll have Knicks soon enough will have plenty of time to address that. But again, this game was about the Indiana Pacers. It was about one Tyrese Halliburton. Halliburton 32, 15, and 12, no turnovers, 4 steals. Just phenomenal performance in a game where the Pacers absolutely needed to win. You don't want if you lose and go back to New York 2-2. Now you're talking about a best of three with two home games at New York in New York, and just completely blowing the two, just completely erasing the commanding lead that they had at the beginning of the series. But that was not the case. He does what great players do. He does what superstar players do. Had a in his mind a bad performance in game four. Excuse me, in game three. He comes back in game four and completely dominates his game, basically from start to finish. Now he did in a stretch where he was jacking threes, and I'm like, chill out on some of these threes that he was just tossing up. With 12 3-point attempts, made 5 of them, but again was 4 for 5 in the first quarter, 1 for 7 for the rest of the game. But his playmaking, his control of the pace, his energy, his leadership was superstar quality, and it was a performance again, one of the dominant, great point guard performances that you will ever see in a playoff game. This is the conference finals. This is the highest level. You got 4 teams left, and against a 51 win team, against a team that was favored, and Knicks were favored coming into this series, he dominated this game and took it by the throat. And really put the Knicks, really had the Knicks. The Knicks just had no answer for him in terms of the pace, his shot making. He seemed when he decided to put his head down to get to the rim, he got to the rim seemingly at will when he stopped jacking up threes in the second half, um, and decided to. There was a portion of the game where he was jacking up threes. When he decided to put his head down and get to the rim, there was no. Knicks had no answer for him, and that was again a spectacular performance by Halliburton. Certainly complimented extremely well from Pascal Siakam, who has been phenomenal in this series. Siakam had 30 points, 30 points, 5 rebounds, um, just one turnover out of Siakam. And Siakam in this series is about almost 26 a game, 54% from three from the field, and basically 50% from the from the 3 point line. He had that just spectacular game two performance that really put the Knicks on their asses in game two when Indiana had trouble scoring the basketball at the beginning of that particular game, and he really saved them in that first half of that Friday night game in game two to help, of course, to help Indiana go up 2 games to nothing. But Siakam has been great in this series. He was great last night. And again, Indiana plays at a certain pace. They, when they're playing at that pace, they can look like the best team in the world. When they slow down even a smidge, they look pretty average. Like Indiana, like it's just that simple. There's no in between. Like with Indiana, they're not good in the half court. Um, they, you if you can slow them down somewhat with their pace, you can. I mean, you have more than a chance to beat them. But the problem is they have a point guard. And again, this is the thing that's going to elevate him possibly into being a top 10 player at the end of the season. They have a point guard that controls the pace and pushes the pace for basically 48 minutes or for the time, however long he's in there. He played 37 minutes. He's going to push. If he's in there for 37 minutes, he's pushing the pace for 37 minutes. And the conditioning that team is, again, when you play at the pace that they play in, you have to play 10 players. They played 10 players last night, 10 minutes or more. Like they went deep into their bench last night, into their bench. And I think that, listen, I never got caught up in the overrated talk in regards to Halliburton. I think thought it was so asinine and ridiculous that it wasn't even one of those things to even bring up on this podcast. To be honest with you, it's just one of those, a couple petty NBA players who don't watch the games or just dislike Halliburton. And again, Halliburton is a major. He's a big time shit talker. The guy, we saw what happened with his father and Giannis earlier in the playoffs. His father, of course, is back at the game last night up in I believe it's in a box suite. Um, so you got players that don't like Halliburton. Here's what he's done in the last 2 years: back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals as the team's best player, 5-1 in playoff series in his career. 5-1. Now again, short sample. Okay, last year was the first year that he led the team to the playoffs. Of course, he never went to the playoffs as a Sacramento King. But he has transformed this Indiana team into a contending team. They're gonna end up going to the finals. Again, I understand this series has been close. They've only outscored the Knicks by a grand total of 11 points in their 3 victories. So and we're gonna look back at this series and say that game one decided the series. And I don't think you got to be a brain surgeon to figure that out. But he is ascending to the top tier of NBA players. I thought coming into the season and his play throughout the course of the season picked up, especially post All-Star break as Indiana made their run. I thought, he was somewhere in that 20, 15 to 20 range, that 20, probably closer to 20. Now, I mean, right now, he gets his team to the finals. I mean, like, he's top 10, top 12. He's in that 12, that 10 to 12 range. I mean, this is all there is to it. For what he does to that team, he elevates that entire roster. And they have talent. Siakam is an underrated player. He's been all NBA a couple times, been an all-star 3 times. And I get it. Very good player. Has a championship. But they don't overwhelm you with great talent. They all the pieces. The thing about Indiana is they have an identity. All the pieces fit. They're a deep team, and they have a great coach, Rick Carlisle. I'm not gonna shit on Tom Thibodeau. He takes a lot of heat in New York, and sometimes it's warranted, a lot of times it's not. But Rick Carlisle is a big time coach. He's won a championship. He gets the most out of his teams. He whatever he conforms to the his personnel. He doesn't he doesn't have this set system where it's like my way or the highway. Expects a lot out of his players, holds them accountable. The guy, has become is like in terms of playoff wins, he's jumped into I believe the top 10 all time in terms of playoff wins. He gets the most out of his teams. You rarely see a Rick Carlisle team. You're gonna say a Rick Carlisle team has underachieved. Those are not like, or you'll rarely see in a playoff series Rick Carlisle get out coached. You go back last year, go back to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Boston, of course, runs through the NBA playoffs. They have a great record. Have this, big had a great time. They were clearly the dominant team in the NBA last year. Won well over 60 plus games and run through the playoffs. Take out Dallas in 5 games. But that Pacers series, they swept the Pacers. Halliburton only played 2 games in that series. They only they didn't run over the Pacers. That 3 of those games were easily winnable games for the Pacers. I think there was a 5-point loss and 2 3-point losses. There was a blowout in game 2, I think, by 16. But the Pacers played the Celtics tough last year. If you want to call a if there was anything as such thing as a competitive 4-game sweep, it was that. And this was despite the fact that Halliburton only played in the first 2 games. Once he had a hamstring pulled his hamstring in game 2 and was done for the rest of the series. Now they wouldn't, of course the Celtic, that was a dominant Celtic team. They were not going to beat the Celtics, but there were some signs then last year that this team could possibly do some damage. Again, going to this season, looking at the Eastern Conference, I'm telling you, Indiana was not on my radar. I'm not going to sit there and tell you I believe that Indiana would be in this position. I thought they were an entertaining team to watch over the course of the season, fun to watch, exciting point guard, well-coached team. But second half of this season, post All-Star break, you really started taking note, especially how they were handling Cleveland in the regular season and how they finished the season after the All-Star break and going into the playoffs. Like, this team, it's going to be a tough out. This team could be a tough out. I didn't think they would get to the conference finals. No one, including myself, did not believe that they would beat Cleveland, especially manhandled the Cavaliers. But they just continued to get better. They know who they are. That's one of the most important things from a basketball team, especially at this time of year. Just understanding who you are as a team. What is your identity? You play to your strengths, try to mask the weaknesses, and go from there. And they find themselves 1 game away from the NBA Finals. Again, I think Game 5 will be extremely competitive. There have been no blowouts in this series. I mean, last night was the least most competitive game in terms of the total outcome. It was 9 points. We've had, again, 3-point game, a 5-point game. The Knick game was a 6-point game. Knick win was a 6-point game, and last night was a 9-point game. So I expect a close Game 5. I don't think the Pacers are going to just give that game away. Like, they're not going to pull a Golden State Game 5 with Houston and just say, hey, you know what? We're going to punt this game and close it out in Game 6. I don't see it at all. Pacers, They closed Milwaukee out in 5. I know that was at home. They closed Cleveland out in Cleveland in 5 in Cleveland. So when they had Game 6 at home, so I don't think it will be a mistake by the Knicks to think to assume that the Pacers are going to sit up here and just give a game away and we'll take care of business in Game 6. That will be a very competitive game. I would not be surprised if the Pacers did win that game. I think the Pacers in 6. I'll stick with that pick, but that game I expect Game 5 to be what we've seen for the majority of this series, a fourth quarter game. We have Game 5 tonight. OKC and Minnesota. OKC not last night, excuse me. Monday night had another coming of age victory in what was frankly one of the best games of the playoffs. There was some high level offense in that game. 79 fourth quarter points. You have a situation where you know OKC's Minnesota's role players and their bench outscored their starters 64-62. They made a bunch of threes. They outshot OKC. They almost won every statistical battle with the exception of shots taken. And of course, they lose badly the turnover battle, which did them in, and they were able to get by Minnesota in that game. And I think the most impressive part of that victory to me was the execution down the stretch out of OKC. They have had. We saw what happened in Game 1 against Denver. Get the Game 1 collapse. They're up, I believe they were up 14 points in that game. They collapsed in the fourth quarter. They lose on the Aaron Gordon 3-pointer. We saw what happened in Game 3 in that series. Aaron Gordon hits a game tying 3. They collapse in the overtime. So, they got past those two. They failed those two particular tests, and then game 4, Game 5 of that series, and now Game 4 of this series are 3 games where their execution in the fourth quarter, especially Game 5 of the Denver series in this game, their fourth quarter execution offensively was near flawless. Basically scoring on every possession, hitting every big shot. You had Shea SGA scoring without forcing anything, trusting his teammates. Jalen Williams hitting big shots. Chet Holmgren with big time blocks and making threes. And it's the first time in that game, in the game on Monday, where I thought that this is a real big 3 now. Like this is like you see how those guys complement each other. SGA has become a do-it-all offensive player. He can rebound his position. We know he can do scoring wise, but he also has become a willing passer, excellent rebounder. He allows Jalen Williams to get his without even, there was a stretch in that game, especially in the fourth quarter, where Jalen Williams really got going in that first quarter. And SGA was like, basically like, here, man, it's you. I'm going to just be a facilitator right now. And then, of course, you have Chet Holmgren up front, stretch 5, make threes, the ball on the floor, block shots. Like, this is a real big 3. And the scary thing for the rest of the league, I'm telling you right now, there was the question I had about OKC in terms of their championship hopes was I thought Holmgren had to be their second best player for them to win a championship. Not because I was down on Jalen Williams. I just wasn't sure that Jalen Williams could be a number two on a team that could win a championship. Now, what we've seen out of Jalen Williams the last, let's say, 3 out of the last 4 games, and I want to say I really believe there's a possibility that when and Jalen Williams is only 24, Chet's only 23, they might have two number twos, and just but depending on the game, depending on the series, one of them might be a number three. I think Chet will be the better player because I think Chet, from a defensive standpoint, as a big man, will be able to impact the game. Even though Jalen Williams has already made an All NBA team defense, second team All defense this year, and I think he's an excellent defensive player. I think Chet has a higher upside, but I think both those guys, Chet and Jalen, have the potential. If you ask me, do I think there'll be one of them will be? Do I think there'll be a number three? One of them will be a number three, or do I think both of them will be number twos in the sense of their skill set? I would lean towards both of them being number two caliber players. That's how impressed I've been with those two players during this playoff run, especially at the end of the Denver series and basically this entire minus game three in Minnesota, the majority of this Minnesota series. Both those guys defend at a high level. Both those guys do not allow their shot to affect the rest of their game if they're not making shots or if they're not scoring at a high level, at a high clip. They defend regardless. Or Jalen Williams will do, I've seen the one thing about Jalen Williams, I mean, he was taking some heat and having some off game shooting, but some of those games, look at his numbers in some of those games. He still would get like 8 or 9 rebounds and would get like 5 or 6 assists, and still would play above average to great defense. So that is scary for the rest of the league for those three to develop and grow together, and the way they complement each other like that is a legitimate big three, a legitimate one, and a great one at that. Um, so I give Oklahoma City all the credit in the world for on the road, a game that Minnesota absolutely had to have without home court advantage. And listen, Minnesota played a great offensive game. They played a great offensive game. You put 126 points on the best defense in the NBA by far, and the best defense in the playoffs by far. You're doing something. I'm going to say the Anthony Edwards stuff for the deep dive. Um, but I think Minnesota. I think that listen, I think we're going to walk away. I expect Oklahoma City, unlike the Knicks in Game 5. I expect Oklahoma City to win tonight. I think the series is done. Um, Oklahoma City after Minnesota blew their chance in Game 4 after just maybe the best performance of the playoffs in Game 3, destroying OKC by 42 points. I understand this has been a very close series. Um, they played great the last 2 games, but they're gonna look back at this series and those first 2 games, you can't spot OKC 2 games. They needed to have any shot, a real chance to beat OKC. They need to steal one of those first 2 games in Oklahoma City. So they'll probably look back at probably Game 1. First half, it was like 44-40. Oklahoma City was coming off the 7-game series versus Denver, and they allowed Oklahoma City to stay in that game the first half, and then Oklahoma City just absolutely, curb stomped them in the second half of that game and won by, of course, 25 points. And we knew in Game 2 that OKC would not get off to that type of start. But I like OKC in this game. I think the game will be close. I don't think Minnesota will roll over um, in this game, but they don't shoot as well on the road. They offensively they don't play as well on the road offensively. Again, Minnesota's won they've won some big road games in the past. Game 7 at Denver last year, so they're capable of winning a big time road game. But this one, I think They are, they're not. I don't think they're in Oklahoma City's class. To be perfectly honest with you, a deep dive the Anthony Edwards discourse. Anthony Edwards has been kind of dragged through the mud for his performance, for some of his performances in this series. You go to the numbers in this series, um, Edwards is 24 points, about 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 49% from the field, 31% from the three, only 69% from the line. Um, he's only attempted 26 free throws in 4 games. It's not enough. Um, so in about 36 minutes of play. So here's the thing. Last game, a couple of nights ago, he only scored only scored 16 points on 5 of 13, 13 shots, 1 of 7 from three, 5 of 7 from the line, 6 assists, 4 rebounds. Was a -3. And again, 13 shots in this game. Had only game one, he only took 13 shots in game one, criticized himself, saying, I need to take more shots. Played very good in game two. And had two excellent back-to-back games in games 2 and 3. Game 3 by far was the best player on the floor in game 3. The problem with the discourse with Anthony Edwards is, first of all, the criticism is wrong. I keep People just keep pointing to what he should have done from an offensive standpoint or what he didn't do offensively, where his shot attempts wasn't aggressive. Minnesota, I remind you, put 126 points on the board. They scored 41 points in the fourth quarter. Everybody, DiVincenzo, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, um, Jay McDaniels, those guys were rolling, right? The bench, Naz Reid, to a lesser extent, all those guys played well. Like those guys, the bench, I told you, Terrence Shannon has some big minutes, and he's somebody that I like for the future for Minnesota. They found a gem with him, to be honest with you. He will definitely be in that rotation next year. So I'm with Ant from the standpoint of not forcing things. They're clearly like, it's not complicated what Oklahoma City is doing to him defensively. They are crowd the paint and double teaming him. He's not getting any straight line drives. They're not going to let him play one on one. And he's been making the right reads. And again, it's not what he didn't do offensively. It's not. Your criticism of Anthony Edwards should be defensively in that game. Because in that game, SGA and Jalen Williams scored 74 points between them. I'm not going to count Chet. Anthony Edwards doesn't guard Chet. But you have two perimeter players score 74 points between them. You, as a great two-way player that he is, as a guy who can defend at a high level, at an all-NBA level when he wants to, you have to take the challenge and say, both of y'all not getting off. One of y'all gets off, that's one thing. But both of y'all, I'm going to slow down one of y'all. You have to take the challenge. That was, to me, the biggest criticism that came out that game. And the fact that, he only had 4 rebounds. Like, he's an excellent rebounder for a guard. Go out there and get 10, 12 rebounds. Like, I saw like SGA had a bad game 3 against Denver where he only scored 18 points. They lost. But in that game, he did have 13 rebounds and I think he had 13 rebounds and 12 assists in that game. So he shot the ball miserably, but he did other things. Now keep this in mind. SGA is 26 years old. Anthony Edwards is 23 years old. Anthony Edwards in 2 years has won 4 playoff series. Minnesota, before the Anthony Edwards era started in 2020, they only had one playoff series in like from like what age from 1990. I think their first year of franchise in like 30 years. And that they won two playoff series. That was the year they had never gone past the first round. They had only went past the first round one time in like 30 years, and that was in 2004. The KG, Sam Cassell, Latrell Sprewell, I think Zerbiak was on that team. That team. I think Troy Hudson. That was that Troy Hudson team as well. I think Troy Hudson was on that team also. But that like this franchise, and like think about it. They've won four playoff series in 2 years. He's only 23 years old. He's not even in his prime yet. He's still in that stage of his career where he's in the figure it out, still trying to figure it out. Not even in his prime yet. You know, NBA players to be able to get into their primes to like 25, 26. So I think that you have to remember that. I think we have to remember that. I think that um, the biggest thing to me about Anthony Edwards and the biggest question mark, this will be a big offseason for him because right now I don't know what the identity of his game. We talked about identity earlier with the Indiana Pacers. We know who the Pacers are. Oklahoma City, we know who they are. They are a tenacious defensive team that wants to run you out the gym and with turnover off turnovers, and they want to run it. You know, they want to physically and mentally wear you down with their defense. So we know who those two teams are. Anthony Edwards, as I don't know from a stylistic standpoint what Anthony Edwards is trying to do on the court. Like his first couple of years, it was attacking the basket, occasional threes. It wasn't really a proficient or efficient, or wasn't really a guy who put up a lot of threes. But this was a guy who, just played downhill. This year, he becomes the NBA's most prolific three-point shooter, leads the NBA in most three-point makes, shoots at an excellent clip at close to 40%. But he doesn't it takes away from him getting to the line. His scoring average doesn't go up didn't go up that dramatically. It went from about 25.9 to about 27.4, which is not that big a jump. And I think that in this series, what he's missing two things that could hurt Oklahoma City's defense: a mid range and a post up game. He doesn't have that yet. He just doesn't. Compare that to Shea, who's 3 years older. Shea will post you up, and Shea, of course, is one of the best mid range players in this league. Might be probably the best mid range player in this league right now. But again, those are things he can add to his game. Now, again, to be honest with you, he should have added the 3-point shot probably last. Probably should have been, mid range first, post up then, and then 3-point last. But he can still add those things to his game, and that takes him. Anthony Edwards with a mid range game, he's going to a whole nother stratosphere. So I'm not gauging Anthony Edwards as as like he's 28 or 30 years old. This is still like the worst that we're gonna some of the worst that we're gonna see him, which is scary. He's still legitimately a top 5 to 6 player in this league. Still still is a superstar franchise player without question. And I don't get into, people get into all these numbers. It's not about the numbers you put up. It's about the impact that you have on your team in terms of winning. Like Halliburton right now, putting up very good, excellent numbers. His impact supersedes the numbers that he's putting up. He's putting up excellent numbers. So again, I think the discourse on Anthony Edwards has been way off to say the least. He'll be fine. But tonight, it's not even about him scoring 40. What I want to see is him defensively take the challenge against SGA or Jalen Williams. We're going to shift our best of the 21st century to a series that, to me, we've been doing movies and shows and music. I figured let's switch it up a little bit. Let's look at a game or a series that was the defining that helped define the 21st century. And this one, considering that we're in the NBA playoffs, this one came right at the top of my memory, especially as a Laker fan. I feel like, and again, I did this research. I looked at every single playoff series from this year to 2002. This is, to me, the last great playoff series. The Lakers and Kings. The Lakers won the series 4-3. And the reason why I call this the last great playoff series, look what led up to this game 7. So, game 7, June of 2002, these teams became rivals, Pacific Division. Lakers, of course, star-studded Shaq and Kobe. The Kings were built through, trades, smart trades, Weber, Mike Bibby, some picks, some excellent drafting, Stojakovic, Turkoglu, and this was this thing was 3 years in the making, right? Lakers 2000, in 2000, Lakers won 67 games. There was thoughts, no Tim Duncan. Remember, San Antonio chose to sit him down because of the knee. He hurt his knee during the season. They were not going to risk him playing in the playoffs. So San Antonio was not able to defend their championship in 2000. So there was a thought, even with Portland lurking, there was a thought that the Lakers would run through the playoffs that year into the finals. That was not the case. And it started out, things as a Laker fan, things started getting dicey in the first round. The Kings took them to 5 games. Lakers were up 2-0 in that series. Then all of a sudden you blinked and it was 2-2. And I'm like, are the Lakers really going to lose to this 8th seed in the fight, to this 8th seed? I know they had some talent, but I was like, they don't even belong on the same court as the Lakers. Lakers won game 5 easily, but that was the first inkling that this King team could be a problem. They meet in 2001. Lakers were unbeatable that year. They went 15-1, destroyed everybody, especially in the Western Conference, to go undefeated in the Western Conference. And they went through the Western Conference. All those teams were 50-win teams, by the way. Matter of fact, I think that Kings team won 55 games. They go through that Kings team. They swept Portland in the first round, and then they destroyed, of course, San Antonio in the conference finals before taking out Philly with the gentleman's sweep in the NBA finals. So the Kings okay, 0-2. We're gonna make them. We gotta do something to close the gap. They go out there. They add Mike Bibby, trade away Jason Williams for Mike Bibby, which to this day was one of at that time was just we talk about a steal of a trade. It changed the whole complexion of that team. They go from 55 wins to 61 wins. They come back 61-21, best record not only in the Western Conference but the best record in the league. They played this fun style of basketball. Really was kind of ahead of his time with the spacing, the passing, just up and down, fast break. They clearly, these are clearly in 2002. These are clearly the 2 best teams in basketball. So they just basically replaced the Spurs for a year It was 2001 and 2001 and 2001. It was the Lakers. Spurs were clearly were the best two teams in basketball, and the winner of the Western Conference was going to win the NBA championship. And in 2002, it was the Kings. The Kings. This was their year. They go out there in this series. They have home court. They have everything going for them. They go out there in this series, drop game one, and then game two, Kobe has the food poison. So they take the Lakers out in game two. And then the series gets interesting. Uh, then it became like, oh shit. They absolutely destroyed the Lakers in game three. It was 103-90. It wasn't even that close. They were up by as many as 24 points. Maybe is just torching the Lakers. He's torching Kobe. He's torching everybody. They go up 20. They win they win game three. He's like, all right, we get to game four. They are going up. They go up 20 again in game four. Lakers chip away, chip away, chip away. And of course, you had the Kobe missing a layup, a contested layup, Shaq missing the shot. Divac bats it out to Robert Horry. Robert Horry nails a three. Now, a couple of things that, and this is where the bad officiating started. In that game four, Samaki Walker, who barely played at all, hit a three, right? Now, at the time, the Lakers were getting beat so bad. They were getting beat to a pulp. At the time, you didn't think much of it. Lakers were down. Lakers were down by 20 in the first quarter, but then they closed the gap in the second quarter. So they're down 65-51 in the first quarter, in the first half. 65-51. Samaki Walker hits a three to cut it from 65-48 to 65-51. Like at the time, again, nobody thought anything of it. Basket should not have counted. Okay, if there was replay during that time, that basket would not have counted. Lakers, of course, end up winning the game by 1 point. So that was the beginning. Again, officials missed it. That would not be the first bad. That would not be the first sign. That was kind of an omen for some for some poor officiating to go Sacramento's way. That's when the series became a classic. At that point, Robert Horry's shot. You get a great game two. Billy hits the game-winning shot. Sacramento wins by one. Game six, Sacramento Kings want to forget about that game. That's the game where the Lakers shot a zillion free throws and barely won in that game. Won by 4 in that game. And in that game, Shaq and Kobe combined for 72 points and shoot 20 free throws between them. The Lakers in that game shot 40 free throws. Sacramento only shoots 25. So that's, of course, the Tim Donaghy situation. No, Tim Donaghy wasn't even in that game. That game, no, Tim Donaghy was not in that game. That was Dick Pavetta, Ted Bernhardt, and Bob Delaney. But that was the game where Kobe hits Mike Bibby with an elbow, and Bibby gets the foul call. Again, in today's game, that would have been a flagrant one on Kobe Bryant. So that's when the conspiracy theories started in that particular game. We get to game 7. Now, this was the first. This game 7 was as intense in terms of the tension as of a game 7 that you will ever see. It was played. You're talking about Lakers outscore. I mean, the game was played at was close throughout. Like Lakers, you're going through the line score, right? Lakers win the first quarter 22-21. Sacramento wins the second quarter 33-30. Lakers win the third quarter 21-20, and the fourth quarter 27-26. That's how close. That's how tight this game was. Uh, in this game, this is where Mike Bibby and Chris Webber, the separation between those two. Bibby was tremendous in this game. Bibby, outside of Shaq, probably was the best player on the floor in this game. Kobe had a bad shoot night, did have 10 rebounds, 7 assists, but and it was a +8. But Bibby in this game, scores 29 points, makes every big shot. And Chris Webber, you talk about Chris Webber wanting no part of the fourth quarter of this game. I think Chris Webber numbers look great, look good at the end of this game with the 20 points, 11 assists, 8 rebounds. But it was Bibby that made every shot. And again, Sacramento can complain all they want. The thing that cost them this game, they missed 14 free throws at home. 14 free throws. Shaq was 11 for 15 in this game. 11 from the free throw line. 11 for 15. Okay. Lai Divac missed 5 free throws in this game. Peja Stojakovic was 3 for 12, including a wide open. When I mean wide open 3-point shot late in the game, he missed about like 4 feet. And Lakers, they go to overtime. Lakers, took over in overtime, and they would finish them off 112 to 106 in a series where how close this series was. Let me give you a sense how close this series was. Sacramento actually outscored the Lakers in this series. So in terms of total points, 697 to 695. 2 points decide this series. Lakers, of course, would go on to win the championship, sweeping the New Jersey Nets in a relative. There were some couple competitive games, but for the most part, that series was the aftermath. The real NBA championship was the 2002 Western Conference Finals. And, at the time, you're thinking that, okay, the Lakers and Sacramento will meet for another 2 to 3 years, to be honest with you. Like, Sacramento came into that following season the favorite to win the championship, but as it would turn out, 2002 would be the closest that franchise and that group, that core would ever get to winning a championship. The following season, they go in, they have a great record. Chris Webber in a series against Dallas, a great series against Dallas. That was a fun series to watch. That was the Nick Van Exel series. Nick Van Exel was incredible in that series. Chris Webber hurts his knee, I believe, in game 2. Microfracture, was never the same player. Never. And they were never the same team. They never reached. San Antonio goes on to win a championship that year. They beat the Lakers. Sacramento loses to Dallas in the second, I believe, the second round of 2003. Yeah, in that second round, they lose to Dallas. Then following year, they lose to Minnesota in a 7-game series, and that was it. That was it. Next thing you know, Weber's gone, and that was. I mean, the Kings were done after that. They didn't make the playoffs. They made the playoffs in the 06, and then of course didn't make it again until 2023. One of the best teams in the. You look at teams that didn't win it. You look at best teams to not make the finals. In recent memory, I can't think of a better team that did not make the finals. Like, to be honest, I'm going through my mind right now. I just cannot think of a better team. They were probably the best team not to make the finals in the last forget about 20 to 25 years, maybe the last 30 years. Like, you gotta go back to, you know, oh, I got one. I probably the best. It would be between them and say the '07 Phoenix Suns. with the Nash and Amari Stoudemire. I'm gonna look those team that team up. I would say between those two teams, those are the two best teams that did not make the finals. That didn't make the finals. Yeah, the 07, 06, 07 Suns, 61 games. That was of course Nash, Stoudemire, um, Sean Marion, Roger Bell, Steve Nash, Stoudemire, Barbosa, Dial. That was a loaded team. That was an absolute loaded team. You're talking Sean Marion. I mean, Nash was second in MVP that year. They had, Stoudemire was, yeah, that Sun team was a loaded team. And they lost, of course, lost to San Antonio in the conference semifinals. 2004, 2005, they won 62 games. Lost to the Spurs in the conference finals. That's when Joe Johnson got hurt. Um, so it's a toss up between those two teams. It's like, yeah, that because of Steve Nash, I probably would lean towards the either the 04, 05 Suns or the 06, 07 Suns as being the best team that I can think of in the last 25 to 30 years not to make the finals. Uh, because of Nash and how dynamic Stoudemire was. Stoudemire was just tremendous. Um, yeah, but that Sacramento team was without question a loaded team. Right? Yeah, definitely the 04. The 04 Suns had, geez. The 04 Suns, Sean Marion was third team All NBA. Stoudemire was second team All NBA. Nash was first team All NBA. Nash was MVP. Stoudemire finished ninth in MVP voting. Marion finished 14th in MVP voting and finished um, fifth in Defensive Player of the Year. So I probably would lean towards the 04-05 Suns. But regardless, the Kings had their chance in that series against the Lakers. Lakers. Shaq was still at the top of his game, but Shaq and Kobe. Kobe wasn't the Black Mamba yet, but still, Kobe in 2002, Kobe was legitimately a top five player. Shaq, of course, was probably, along with Duncan, the best player in the world. But that team was starting to show cracks. The Lakers were starting to show cracks with age. Of course, they would go on to, they would go on not to four-peat. Lakers were right for the picking. They could have been taken out. They could have been taken out by Sacramento. And you walk away from that series saying that the Lakers won because of just the experience factor. That it wasn't like it was a situation where, if you're a Sacramento fan or you're somebody that played for Sacramento, you did not believe that the Lakers were a better team than you. You just didn't believe it. And Sacramento never reached that level again. They never came even close to came close to sniffing a championship or sniffing the finals ever again. Again, this was a series where you had just two heavyweights going at it, two heavyweight teams going at it. You have Shaq and Kobe, two of the four best players in the league. Chris Webber is a legit top 10 player in the league. Kobe was clutch. Sacramento had all types of talent in terms of their bench. It was a classic situation of top heavy team versus a team with a lot of depth and shooting and passing. Stylistically, the Lakers played the game inside out with the power game. Lakers could shoot threes, but they did them. They picked and chose. They were judicious about how they shot the three point shot, how they use the three. They were a power team versus this up and down team that did it with passing and great half court execution. Fun team. Sacramento was a fun team to watch, and again, a call here, a bounce here. I mean, if Hadi Divac puts that pass somewhere else and not to Robert Ory, the Lakers are down 3-1 in that series. Like the Lakers are down 3-1. If Kobe or Shaq make one of those layups to tie the game instead of saying like Lakers were down by two. They were down 99-97. If Kobe makes that layup or Shaq makes a layup, it probably goes to overtime and they might have lost in overtime. Like so that one play changed the trajectory of probably of who knows, maybe Lakers lose and maybe the Kobe and Shaq break up. And maybe that team is broken up and Kobe and Shaq decide to go their separate ways. You just don't know. And Sacramento possibly can start their own little mini dynasty. Sacramento wins that series, they absolutely would have ran through the Nets in the finals. They would have destroyed the Nets in the finals. So they win a championship without question. So many would have, could have, but never wasn't in terms of Sacramento. Again, just some of the games, like I think that game seven was a great game seven. Game five was a great game. And of course, the Ori 3-point shot was a classic comeback versus collapse and a great shot. Just to me, just the last great NBA playoff series as far as I'm concerned. Give me some just one real thought before I let you go. Went to see Mission Impossible 8 over the weekend. 2 hours and 49 minutes. I guess you subtract 9 minutes of previews, 2 hours and 40 minutes. So listen, this is for this movie uh is not for the casual movie fan. This movie is for if you the Mission Impossible geeks. Um and there will be some spoilers. Spoiler alert. There will be some spoilers. If you haven't seen it, you probably want to, cut off the podcast or turn it on mute for the next 3 to 5 minutes. Listen, I liked the movie. I didn't love it too long. Great action sequences. I thought the movie tried too hard to convince us that this is going to be the last Mission Impossible. I really did. A lot of callbacks. Ving Rhames' character, Luther, of course, dies. Um, I don't believe for a second that this is the last Mission Impossible. As long as Tom Cruise has breath on this earth and is living, I believe that there's space for another Mission Impossible, and I believe they will make another Mission Impossible. Again, there was so much going on. It was like even for Mission Impossible with the whole nuclear, the fate of the world rise on Tom Cruise and the risk that he takes. And it was a lot. No, to find you would need to read breakdown after breakdown, listen to multiple podcasts to just keep up with everything to understand everything that was going on. It was too much, even by Mission Impossible standards. Even by Mission Impossible standards, it was too much. I like Dead Reckoning. Dead Reckoning was much better. And I think 2 hours and 40 minutes. And Dead Reckoning was long, but I just think when you have called the movie franchises, remember this franchise started in 1996. Some of the callbacks, even for and again, I remember some of the I remember most of the callbacks because I've been a major fan of the franchise, but it was a lot. They asked a lot of the audience from the storyline and the plot line. Um, I'm fine with the movie. Again, it was not bad. I'll say it. It was not a bad movie. Tom Cruise does not make bad movies. He just doesn't. But I think for the next one, and they're going to make another one, we need to see Tom Cruise. And Tom Cruise is 60 years old, in his 60s. We need to see maybe him aging as Ethan Hunt. Like, I don't know if anybody saw. if you saw Skyfall, which to me, Skyfall is legit top five James Bond movie of all time, easily. I put it right on par with Casino Royale as like probably two of the top five, two of the best James Bond movies ever. The thing that made Skyfall good, great, was the fact that they actually showed that this motherfucker is old and vulnerable. Like he was a bad shot. He was getting older. He was about to be like, yeah, he was old. Like James Bond, Daniel Craig character, and Daniel Craig played it perfectly to a T. Like they showed his vulnerability. They showed they he wasn't this you know wasn't this guy who was superhuman. Like stop trying to convince us as I mean Ethan Hunt is not vulnerable. Is not aging. He is aging. And I think with the next one, that could be a perfect there could be a perfect one, a perfect movie for the next one to show him aging. He doesn't have to die. I get it. It's Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is not going to kill himself in Mission Impossible unless it actually happens with on a set with these crazy stunts that he tries. But can we at least show some vulnerability from a physical standpoint as far as the age, as far as him aging? Like that would be perfect for me. You can have him training, his training somebody to come up. That's going to be the next Ethan Hunt. Even we know, even the fact that we know that won't be there will never be another Ethan Hunt. But I need some vulnerability from that standpoint. Stop trying to convince me that he's not 60. He's fucking old. We get it. It's fine. It's okay. But overall, again, I would give the movie probably like a B minus. Um, 2 hours again. 2 hours and 49 minutes is a long. It's a long time. It's a long time for an action movie. And again, 35, basically um, 35 years of plot lines and trying to connect plot lines over the course of 8 movies. That's a lot. It's a lot to ask for your audience. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. Have a great rest of your evening. I'll see you next time. So long.